Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel, and I've got a couple topics to discuss in this latest Moon Lambo Hot Jam, including this headline from crypto media outlet U Today. SEC vs. Ripple. Judge allows Brad Garlinghouse to seek documents from Binance. And also, some of you may have caught a recent video I put out on the topic of Nexus, which is a payments platform that's being put out by the Bank for International Settlements, effectively. And it's one of those things where, of course, it's another XRP killer. It eliminates the need for XRP. What does Ripple even do? It's another one of those types of things. And I've got some additional thoughts to share with you on that topic. And what made me decide to talk about that a little bit further, actually, is that a Ripple employee actually made a very brief comment on this, because there's been some speculation. I'm not sure where all this comes from, but there have been people I've seen on social media talking about the idea of XRP perhaps being utilized, or the XRP ledger somehow being utilized within Nexus, which is supposed to be the XRP killer. So everything that's not Ripple has to do with payments globally. It's the new XRP killer the first day it's announced. There we go. But anyway, I'm going to be clear at the outset. I don't have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who makes YouTube videos all up on the internets because it's a fun hobby. I like talking about Ripple and XRP and crypto in general, but that's all that's going on here, damn it. And if you don't like it, well, you can just get out. And so to properly set the table for this first story, I just want to cover parts of this article from Crypto Newsflash, and this is from just the other day. But here's the headline. Ripple lawyers request Binance's help against SEC lawsuit. Brad Garlinghouse's lawyers are requesting for Binance's documents to challenge the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission lawsuit against Ripple. Garlinghouse, the CEO of Ripple Labs, was sued by the SEC alongside Chris Larsen late last year. And the regulator claimed, of course, as you know, $1.38 billion worth of unregistered securities being sold. And so Binance Holdings Limited, the Cayman Islands-based subsidiary of the world's largest crypto exchange, is now involved. This follows a Monday filing of court documents in the Southern District of New York on behalf of Garlinghouse. According to Garlinghouse's legal advisors, the requested documents are, quote, relevant to the case and unobtainable through other means, end quote. And so this was interesting in particular because you're thinking, okay, why didn't Ripple's attorneys go for these documents? And why'd they wait until now? It's been 7 months roughly since the lawsuit was filed. Why wouldn't these documents be obtained sooner? And so the speculation, and I'd say understandably so, is that this is because Brad Garlinghouse may be nearing settlement with the SEC. And understand that doesn't mean settlement for Ripple and the SEC. There are 3 defendants. Brad's just one of them, but then Chris Larsen is another, and Ripple is the third. And so even if this is the case, it wouldn't help Ripple, the company, specifically right now. But other than that, I just can't fathom why Ripple's attorneys would wait 7 months to get this information. You might think, okay, well, why is this relevant for settlement? Well, because not 100% of Garlinghouse's sales of XRP were outside of the United States. Those sales outside of the United States were not sold to United States citizens. The SEC doesn't have jurisdiction over them, so you can't seek any sort of damages or disgorgement for those ones, but for the ones in the United States, you could. And so you would need full records, verifiable, true records, to find out to what degree Garlinghouse may have sold some of his XRP to somebody that's in the United States. And his legal team's made clear, the vast, overwhelming majority of sales would have been taking place outside of the United States. And so why would you need this information right now? Well, if there's settlement talks, you got to figure out how much is going to be owed if there's going to be a settlement here. So that's where the speculation is coming from. I don't pretend to know for sure, but that's what's being discussed here. And so there are a couple quotes here. Actually, let me just share this one. Here's what Ripple's lawyer said. As the SEC knows, Mr. Garlinghouse's sales of XRP were overwhelmingly made on digital asset platforms outside of the United States. The discovery that Mr. Garlinghouse seeks will be relevant to demonstrating that the offers and sales that the SEC challenges did not occur in this country and are not subject to the law that the SEC has invoked in this case. And so ultimately, like this was actually granted. The discovery was granted by the court today. Before I hop over to that, Jeremy Hogan actually said the following on this very topic, though. Attorney Jeremy Hogan. Garlinghouse is getting documents from Binance related to his sales of XRP to it. This request goes to our third issue in the case, which is jurisdiction over the sales. SEC cannot disgorge profits to foreign entities or individuals. These documents will fight damages. And so then there's this article, SEC versus Ripple, judge allows Brad Garlinghouse to seek documents from Binance. Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse's motion to obtain international discovery has been granted by Magistrate Judge Sarah Knepper. So there you go. That's a win for Brad Garlinghouse. But I think we were expecting that, frankly. It didn't look like the SEC was interested in pushing back, which frankly isn't that surprising, especially considering that they put out their MOUs. I was talking about that the other day. You may recall memorandums of understanding. And the SEC effectively seeking discovery overseas by putting pressure on Ripple's business partners, which just seemed like a shakedown tactic, if anything, but the court allowed it, is what it is. Anyway, piece continues. Garlinghouse is seeking to obtain documents about his XRP trading records from Binance Holdings Limited, a subsidiary of the Binance exchange that is based in the Cayman Islands. And by the way, let me pause here, because if you're wondering why he might be doing that, he's like, because typically if you're on an exchange, you'd be able to log in and get your history there. It seems to me that they likely want it from an official source so that it's not disputed. I think if it actually comes from Binance, I think that probably just carries more weight, would be my guess. But anyway, the piece continues. The court will arrange the delivery of a letter of request to the Central Authority of Cayman Island on Garlinghouse's behalf after communicating with counsel. The motion was widely expected to be granted since there was no opposition from the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. And so there is no official document. I think because there wasn't anything being disputed, the judge actually didn't write up anything. Because, a lot of times when there's requests like this from the court, there will be a decision made, and then there will be a document with the rationale that led to that. But since this wasn't disputed, I guess the judge didn't feel like there was a need to actually have any sort of attached document, which is only the second time off the top of my head I can recall during this case that's happened. Usually things are very contentious, and so the judge lays out the rationale for all this. All right, into the next topic now. There's this tweet from Gold Telegraph. And this was actually from August 2nd, but a Ripple employee ended up chiming in, which is why I'm covering this. And I'm going to share some new thoughts on this anyway. But breaking news, the Bank for International Settlements has launched Project Nexus, which aims to build a global retail payments network on top of existing instant payment systems operated by central banks, targeting cross-border payments in 60 seconds, heating up. And then that's what was touted as the Ripple killer right there. Oh my God, 60 seconds. What do we even need XRP for? And so I broke it down in pretty great detail, but I still do want to say some things in this video. And then somebody named Danny responded to that and wrote, is Ripple not listed as a partner on their website? If they are building their own platform, then what's the point of Ripple being associated with them? I am super confused right now. Well, let me just say this. There will not be one platform for payments to rule them all. I don't even think Ripple's going to get 100% market share if they continue to find success with their payment system, and even with XRP as a bridge currency. I don't think it's going to be 100%. I think banks are going to want options for various reasons. There could be geopolitical reasons for this. There can be who knows? People have relationships. Like it's like the real world is much more dynamic than some people give it credit for. That's the truth of the matter here. And so as far as Ripple being a partner, I'm not sure if you're citing specifically with Nexus. I have seen people on social media talk about Ripple and XRP and Nexus. I haven't seen anything about that, but obviously I always acknowledge I could be missing things. If anybody can point me in the direction, if that actually exists, let me know. I've not seen it. If you're talking about Ripple and the BIS, well, look, I'll consider this too. And again, I think that the Bank for International Settlements, if they're being realistic, I don't think that they believe that even if this platform works, that they're going to have 100% market share. And there are a lot of shortcomings to it too, which I broke down in the last video, and I want to talk about some of them. But anyway, somebody named Jan G responded to that and wrote, there has never been any point with Ripple, dude, except selling the S-word coin to clueless people. And so what's funny about that is here's an individual that legitimately doesn't understand that Ripple has dozens of customers paying customers that utilize on-demand liquidity, which means XRP as a bridge currency on a daily basis, because it solves problems for them. They have business models that wouldn't function without this, and this individual doesn't know it and calls it an S-word coin, and then calls people clueless, and that's very rich to me because this is an actual clueless human that doesn't know any of that. Does not know. And then somebody named Kyle responded to that and wrote, "This solution doesn't solve the liquidity problem. XRP Ledger will unlock tens of trillions for governments." And so this is part of what I wanted to talk about here. So let's say that this Nexus platform is a good idea. And this is what, for those of you that are kind of curious, like this is the document I went through. Here you can see Nexus, a blueprint for instant cross-border payments. It's 20 pages long. I read the whole thing. I printed it up. I highlighted the most relevant parts from my perspective and shared my thoughts on this. And to me, it's another walled garden. And they're not solving for pre-funded accounts. They're not solving with the trust. So there's still counterparty risk as it pertains to the actual movement of money across borders. They have not solved for that counterparty risk, and you don't have that with XRP. And so let's just say that this platform ends up being adopted, which is an if. That's definitely an if. I mean, and they're going to have to fight for it. You got to understand, because what they're doing here is they're seeking to basically integrate what is effectively a protocol by having ISO requirements. Well, in order to be like an ISO certified entity, there are certain requirements that are set from industry to industry to industry. And so basically they're trying to get everybody all on the same page with those. And then if everybody's on the same page with those, and that's an if you can pull that off, then you've got a sufficient base level for the protocol layer to work, which actually is crucial, because if you're all starting with a different baseline, you start throwing technology on top of that, then you're going to get a whole bunch of communication issues and other problems. It doesn't work. So if you really want to solve the problem, they're somewhat on the right track, but in terms of messaging, but so is Ripple. So anyway, what they're doing is they're seeking to have basically this protocol level, and they want the whole world to adopt that. And so you can think, oh, well, shoot, that might be bad for Ripple, because protocols actually can, I mean, if they're neutral, if they're neutral, they can actually be adopted globally, like TCP/IP, which is the glue of the internet, effectively, right? Because the internet is a network of networks. Well, that might sound intimidating, yeah, except for is it truly neutral protocol? Because you're talking, what they're trying to do is take domestic, basically the payment infrastructure, which varies from region to region, so whatever would be domestic for a particular region, and then stitching that together if you have like a base level of what protocols have to be in place. So that's where the ISO stuff comes into play. That's the plan right there. So, but even if you can do that, here's the thing: with Nexus, it's actually not just protocol like TCP/IP. It's protocol plus you need to run Nexus software. So imagine if, in order to get the internet to work, everybody, because if you want 100% market share, you had to have, what if, instead of just TCP/IP, it was TCP/IP plus software that was controlled by somebody specifically. Well, that starts to sound a little bit more dubious, doesn't it? And so so it's not just protocol, though. It's software on top of this. And so here you have another entity that is fighting for market share with their new approach to all of this. And so that's why I'd say, even if this works, and even if you can get people to adopt it, which is not a certainty, mind you, like you have to convince people to jump on board. And even if you link up these payment systems, there are how many thousands of remittance firms and banks all over the world? And then you've got to convince all of them in each individual country to jump on board, unless you're going to actually mandate that, which won't fly in every single country anyway. Even if some countries actually get dictatorial and mandate it, not every country will do that anyway. And then even if you can do that, in terms of the settlement portion of this, are you going to get, and they already acknowledged too, they're not even trying to jump into managing the relationships with pre-funding. So there will still be pre-funding of accounts. All of those relationships that are existing, nothing changes there. Individual businesses, they get to decide who, what those arrangements look like. So yeah, pre-funding absolutely still a thing. But even if, and this is still an if, even if you can have, based on a new base layer protocol level of interaction, to where banks that are on opposite sides of the planet, where you can still settle in real time, right? Remind you, one of the many reasons that doesn't work today is because on one side of the planet, it's business hours. On the other side of the planet, you want to settle with that entity, but it's the middle of the night and they're not conducting business. And so if you want to have protocols in place that the messaging for settlement specifically, like if that's allowed, even if that works, and so there's another if, even if that works, the problems are not solved yet because you haven't solved for pre-funding. There's still dormant capital. There still is counterparty risk. And you can imagine this too. On top of that, like who's pre-funding? Well, it's the largest banks on the planet by and large, because the small banks, and most banks are small, mind you, they're small and some mid-sized banks, but most banks are very small. Well, they can't afford to have dormant capital the world over. They can't. They're not like, it's not like they're Citibank, okay? They're not one of the biggest banks on the entire planet. And so what they're doing is they're paying exorbitant fees to their larger competitors to tap into that dormant capital, that liquidity. That's what they're doing. You're not solving for that. So even if this all works, and still, you see how many ifs we've got at this point? Even if that works, how much is this going to cost? How much is actually being saved? Because we can say this, like we know that at least with XRP, XRP itself, native digital asset of the XRP ledger, it settles in a few seconds for fractions of a penny. And so, yes, there can be expenses with local rails, but we know how expensive pre-funding is. There's a cost associated with that, and we know that smaller banks are paying their larger competitors, and you're not solving for any of that. And even if you did, it's still not clear that this would be the platform that would be the XRP killer. That doesn't make any sense. That just doesn't make sense to me. You may get partial adoption. This may be a good platform, a huge step up compared to what exists, but so is RippleNet and on-demand liquidity. It doesn't just exist. It's not just going to win against Ripple and have 100% market share because it suddenly is launched on the market. Like some people freak out in that way. I think it's like, oh my God, this new thing, we're in trouble here. Oh my God. No, that's not how this works. There's too many moving parts to all of this. There's too many unknowns. And BIS and Nexus, it's not been made clear by them what expectations should be expected in terms of settlement. So even if it's way faster, and I would think that there would be some cost savings, frankly, on the messaging side, certainly, because the traditional Swift system, it's such a train wreck. Yeah. But there are all sorts of messaging systems out there. I've covered them extensively on this channel as they pop up. But the settlement side, like, it's just not clear. And so people jump to the conclusion that this is some sort of a game ender. I'm like, well, there's not even sufficient information available to come to such a conclusion. You know, there just isn't. And as more information becomes available and adoption unfolds, and I'm sure they'll get some traction here. Why not? It seems like every system, it tends to get at least a little bit of traction, then some of them ultimately go away. Some of them will take hold, I suppose, over a longer period of time. But we're not going to know what that looks like. So it's and even then, like, people like to have multiple options. So I don't think that it's going to be, you know, one payment system to rule them all. It's just ridiculous. People have different interests. And so then, in response to what Kyle wrote there, Jan G, who is clueless yet claims other people are clueless, wrote the following. OFC, it will unlock funds since it's a centralized S-word coin that is printed in unlimited numbers. Which is ridiculous, of course. There's a finite amount of XRP. And so this is where Ripple employee Matt Hamilton jumps in, and he wrote, 100 billion XRP was created at the inception in the ledger. No more can be created. It is not unlimited. And then Jan G, who is clueless, responded to that and wrote, and what stops the XRP team to just print more, except their promises? Matt Hamilton responds, the rest of the network, it is a decentralized network. The rules of the network are upheld by the participants of the network. And indeed, there is no way to print more XRP. And then somebody named Paul jumped in and wrote, so what is XRP Ledger's role in this? I think is the burning question, Mr. Hamilton, or is it simply being reproduced? And Matt Hamilton did respond and wrote, I don't know whether Bank for International Settlements would use the XRP ledger. I haven't seen anything that confirms any intentions of theirs either way. And I certainly haven't either. But to all the people out there that have been freaking out, there have been some of them rather vocal that, oh, no, XRP doesn't even make sense. Like, some people act like this, another walled garden called Nexus hit the news, and there are actually people out there that say, look at this. XRP doesn't even have a competitive edge now. And I'm just sitting there thinking, holy hell, have you logically thought all of this through? because there's a lot of hurdles. And it's not even clear that if you can overcome the vast majority or all of those hurdles, that the expenses for this, especially on the settlement side, would be lower. It's just not clear. It really isn't. I'll wrap up there, though. I am not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the Moon Lambo.